What's going on, guys? We got Pablo here in the house. Pablo's down in Northern California. He's got a, full pressure washing, roof cleaning, windows, all the sort of stuff you can name it. Pablo's landed some serious jobs, which we're going to talk about. Welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, thanks, man. I was super happy to get invited. It's kind of surreal, like going from watching the YouTube videos to actually being on one. It's pretty cool. But I've learned a lot from your channel, learned a lot from the book, and it's just been amazing. To help me get out of my 9 to 5 and just focus on this full time has been great.
Sweet, man. Yeah, you got pretty much the same type of journey. So you're making if you want to take us back to the beginning, like when you first started,
hmm
because I love hearing those stories too. So you're making, I don't know, minimum wage, or if you had some jobs like 9 to 5, if you want to tell us about that.
Yeah. So I was originally I was working at Sonoma Raceway. I was working at the racetrack as like a mechanic slash
I see the
instructor.
picture in the background too.
Yeah,
Like,
that's me back when I was cool.
oh,
And
damn.
um, basically, like COVID hit, and the racetrack basically shut down. So I was kind of out of work. It was very sporadic. There was a change of ownership, so I was like, okay, this just isn't consistent. I need to find something. And at the time, a buddy of mine had a flooring company. He's like, hey man, I could use some help, and I needed the cash, obviously. So I wasn't in a position to really say no to a job opportunity. So I started working for him, and I started around like 20, 25 an hour, and just basic labor, learning how to like install floors and do all these things. And man, time just kind of flew. Like I really didn't think I was going to be stuck in that job for a year or so, but you know, sometimes your opportunities are really like not there, and you have to take what you can, unfortunately, if you're
Yeah.
tight with money. And so I was just like, man, I got to get out of this. Like, I got to get out of the 9 to 5. I got to find something that I can build myself. I've always kind of had the entrepreneurial mindset, but I needed to figure out what I wanted to do. And I'd done a bunch of shit. Like, I'd done e-commerce, I'd done drop shipping, I'd done all these
Yep.
things, and nothing really took off. And then I don't know how one of your videos, I think, just popped up on like the YouTube shorts. And I was like, dude, this guy just made $500 in like 3 hours. Like that's like 3 full days of work for me. You know what I mean? And then I just started nerding out, and I was like, I think I'm gonna pull the trigger on this. So I was like, okay, what do I need? I watched your videos, and you're like, okay, all you really need is a ladder, a leaf blower. You got to go knock on some doors and go, start cleaning gutters or whatever. And I was like, okay, so spent a couple $100 at Home Depot, and I was fucking set up. And first job I ever did, I actually did for free. It was for a neighbor of mine, and she lives on this. She lives by the golf course, so we get a lot of like trees and debris and shit. And her house was just fucking covered in moss. Can we swear on this? I'm sorry.
Oh
I
yeah. Yeah,
just
you're
yeah.
good, dude. You're good.
So it was just, I mean, you couldn't even see the shingles, and I didn't know how difficult it was going to be. So I knock on her door. I'm like, hey, I'm just starting this business, and if I could like record me cleaning this and I could run that as an ad, it would really help me out. And she was like, yeah, knock yourself out.
Go
So,
for it.
dude, I thought it was going to be like, I was going to fill one contractor's bag worth of debris, blow the roof off with the leaf blower, and I'd be done. Dude, I was there for 6 hours. I filled up like 7 contractor bags worth of, I mean, she had hundreds of pounds of moss on her roof. And I was breaking my back, and I'm like, man, maybe this isn't for me, like I start second guessing everything. But in a weird way, it was great, because that's like, I started out with the most difficult job I could have done,
Yeah.
and I did it for absolutely nothing. And I'm
She
like,
didn't
oh
pay
my
you
God.
nothing, or did she give you a review at least or something? Or
No, she was like disabled, like was had people checking in on her, like the county was coming in. And I was just like, okay, you know what? It's a nice thing to do. It's going to help me out, and I'll be able to run some cool ads from it. It's like a no-brainer.
yeah.
And funny enough, like when I did the job, I was like knocking on the door. She didn't even answer. I don't think she like could get out of bed, so I did the job, and then I would like go back and check on her, and she was all good. But it was just funny. I was like, man, I just busted my ass for nothing. But I learned a bunch, and I was able to apply that to all these other jobs and just kind of, take off running. So it was good.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Like I mean that's pretty much what I did with my dad. I cleaned his whole thing, and just I mean, people we used to have like multiple. I mean, like thinking of apprenticeships. Like that used to be like multiple years, or now it's like 2 years for like some trades. But obviously with this, it's like literally a couple jobs you're in. But like a lot of
Yeah.
people aren't even willing to do anything for free. You know, they're not willing to get out there, and especially if you don't know shit, it's like you got to learn. You got to learn somehow, and like you learned like way more. Like sometimes it's hard to quantify like how much knowledge is worth, like how much experience is worth. Like now you've been able to make like hundreds of thousands just from that little bit of experience. You know.
Yep. Yeah, and that's like I think the biggest barrier to entry is people are afraid to do the work, you know. And I was the same way. Like I would be nerding out like I'd gotten on a roof like once in my life and I was
Yeah.
terrified of heights and I'm like, God, I really don't know. And so I'm like, okay, like I'm looking up videos like what's the best way to like position a ladder and what's like the safest way to, you know, come down from a ladder. And I was just like, nothing beats experience. Like
Yeah.
you should learn, of course, like that's what YouTube and things like that are for, but just get out there. Like that's the only way you're going to succeed.
Yeah, even it's funny. We'll get so many like we'll get you guys in the group. I get comments on YouTube or emails or whatever, and people are just asking all these questions, and then I'm like, okay, well, how many times have you done this? And they're like, oh, I've never done it. I'm like, honestly, man, like asking questions about certain things like that, like how to use this or that, and it's like if you haven't done it, bro, like there's nothing I can say that's gonna like help you. You just gotta get out there and do it yourself, man. Like you could read 100,000 books on playing guitar, but until you pick up a guitar, you're never gonna be able to play it. So just
Yeah.
certain
And I
things.
would I would argue that that moment where you pick up the guitar, you instantly, you know, you surpass those people that basically try to like worry about everything and play out every scenario. And it's
Yeah,
like, if you're going to start a business, experience is your friend, failure is a necessity, and that's truly the only way you will succeed is by just going through that like uncomfortable moment of I don't know what to do or maybe I messed this up, whatever, like no book, no audio tape is going to basically like provide that for you, you know.
and it comes with it sounds, and it's really like you gotta have a little bit of faith too. Like it's almost like spiritual, like having that faith. Like when you do that first job, you're like, oh shit, like nothing could come of this. I'm obviously gonna make no money, but I believe that this is gonna help me out. This is gonna, and it, obviously it did. So having that faith is really important too.
Totally. Yeah, you got to be a risk taker kind of and just have like a one track mindset of like it's going to work, you know. It's not like there is no plan B, you know.
Yeah.
My plan B is plan A.
Yeah, and I love talking about risk too because one of my buddies is like, he's a lawyer, so he's always like very risk averse, and I'll tell him about things that I'm planning on doing. He's like, "That's risky." I'm like, "Dude, I've taken a lot of freaking risk in my life." There's different types of risk though. There's like going to the blackjack table and betting it all on black versus like a calculated risk. Like, okay, if I go out, if I quit my job, start my business, knock enough doors. If I knock enough doors, run enough ads, like I know I can make the money. It's like, yeah, it's not 100% guaranteed that I'm gonna have enough work to do whatever, but the risk is on me. It's like just on how much I can work. So I feel like there's calculated risk and then there's like uncontrollable risk. There's really like two types of risk.
Yeah, and when it's about like your future, you know what I mean? Like that is always a risk worth taking, you
Yeah,
know.
we're all gonna die. Like we don't fucking know when we're gonna die. Like it doesn't really not to be like, but like yeah, everything in this life is risky. The second you take your keys and you drive down the road, like that's like one of the most risky things we can do is like driving day to day. So
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, it's like you realize like how big the problem actually was, you know, like you always play it up in your head in a totally different way and life always works out in a different way than what you plan. So in that sense you do have to just send it because you never know like your success and your failure it's not going to go according to how you thought it was going to go. It's always unpredictable.
yeah, literally, I can't think of a single business that started out a certain way, like and ended up where they are now. Like, well, I mean, like, I think one of my favorites is like YouTube. Like, that was like originally like a dating app. You could post a video of like yourself to like, so someone else could see it. And then now it's like, one of the biggest streaming platforms in the world for videos. And it started out as a dating app. And it's just like, you have no idea like the problem you're going to, and this was something I think you brought up on the call yesterday was like someone asked like, oh, what business should I start or what like service should I provide? And you're like, well, what are the ones you the 10 most ones that you do, it's like there every market's going to be different, right? Like you can't really just like, oh yeah, you need to do this, you're going to do that. Like it's completely just whatever your market wants, you know.
Yeah, that was a big one for me because I think you have like we all want to do roof washes, right? We all want to maybe not do gutter cleans as much. Some work is more glamorous than others, but uh, I realized like, man, I'm just leaving a bunch of money on the table if I'm not taking advantage of what my market is telling me. And my market at the time was like gutter cleans, and I hate gutter cleans. I just they're messy. Some of the houses we have here in California too, they just like really weird pitch and it's like stuck together where you can't get a ladder in between.
Oh yeah,
There's
I hate
there's
those.
some complicated ones here of like houses that are on top of each other. But man, if I didn't run ads for that because I knew like it was in demand, there would have been months where I was like, okay, I don't have work this week. It's like, and that $300, $400 gutter clean, like that adds up if you stack them on top of each other, and you can't be like stubborn, right?
Yeah.
Your ads are going to tell you what works and what doesn't. You can't just say, no, I love this ad. It has to work. Like if it doesn't, it doesn't. You're just wasting money. Like, don't fall in love with it. Just change and just move. Like, you have to always adapt.
Yeah, dude. And I tell people all the time, like, this is America. If someone wants to pay me money to do something, I will. If it's the right amount of money, I'll do it. Like, if you want me to cut your,
Within reason.
yeah, within reason, like obviously, but
Yeah.
shit, like I've like even like last year, like some lady was like, oh, I have a bunch of, I did a roof clean, it was awesome, and then she's like, she was also kind of like not disabled, but she was older, she couldn't really move around. She had a bunch of like some metal that she needed cut, like from some old fence posts and like spreading some mulch. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll take care of it. Just a couple hundred extra bucks. Like took me a couple hours. I was like, fuck it, and I'll
Yep.
spread mulch for. I mean, I used to pull weeds for less like $10 an hour, like 5 or 6 years ago back in college, and it's like I'll do pretty much anything. Obviously, the money has to be right, but like this is America, man.
Yeah.
People have
Yeah.
this ego like about all this stuff, like, oh, I can't do this or that. You gotta like, as men, we're like, I saw this as someone tweeted this, like, as a man, you are never too good for the trenches. Like you always got to be able to just get down, get to work.
Yeah. That humbling experience, which, dude, I had the same thoughts too. Like, you know, you always have this idea of like where you're going to be in life, right? Or what you're going to do after college or high school. And, maybe you're really smart and you could see yourself like in the tech field or in the financial sector or whatever. But there's nothing that like connects you back to earth, back to like who you truly are than just like getting your hands dirty, building
Yeah,
something, like solving a physical problem. It just like it resets you, you know what I mean? And like you said, like you should never be like too good to do that stuff, and even if my business continues to move forward and maybe I'm dealing with more of the administrative stuff, like I want to be out there. Like I hate being inside all day on the computer.
yeah.
I there's no better feeling than like going outside, busting your ass, and then coming back home and just relaxing. Like
That pocket full of cash, it's
yeah,
like,
you cannot. There's nothing you can do on the computer that would like give you that satisfaction.
I know, dude. It's absolutely insane. Like, cause yeah, you and me both did like e-commerce and all this other stuff. Like we tried all this shit and just like wasn't fulfilling. And yeah, obviously we're not gonna do this forever. Like we're still younger, but like it's I always looked up to the bosses in my life too that could still bust. Like when I used to work at a tire shop, and it's like the boss obviously you had his office, but when things were busy, like he would come out and bust faster than anyone else, and I always respected that as a man. And like I feel like
Yeah.
men, like we need that respect from other people, and we need to give it, like we only give that to respect to people who can do good work. And like I've never really seen, like, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but certain like tech bros and stuff, it's just like the old meme of like, oh, soft hands and stuff. Like it's just kind of true, man. Like some of these people, like they don't have a single tool. They couldn't cut themselves out of a cardboard box if they needed to. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, we're just in that weird point in like history where that's like a thing now, right? Before every man was involved in some type of physical labor. And I
Yeah,
and I think that's why we do feel like so rewarded because it is like in our DNA to like
yeah,
go out and just, you know, sweat and be outside and build stuff, like that's that's ingrained in our nature, and that's I don't think you'll ever replace that.
No, and we were talking a bit earlier too about getting land and stuff and kind of like the next steps. So I mean, we'll circle back to that, but like so back down. So we'll go back to your story too. I know we could. I love going off on tangents and stuff talking about this
Yeah.
stuff. But so you're working the jobs, and then so you did the job for free, and then do you remember like the next step? Like were you able to just like knock some more doors, get another job, or running ads, or what was it? Kind of that next job that first payday. You're like, fuck, this is awesome. Like holding up that money.
Yeah, well, funny enough, that my first payday wasn't like, anything great. I remember I was, I did that job, and I'm like, okay, I more or less kind of understand what I need to do. And so I just started knocking the neighborhood, and my success rate wasn't great with door knocking. I went out and I got door hangers, and I got business cards and flyers and things like that. And just the return rate, I don't know, maybe it was the time of the year, maybe my website didn't look as good at the time, but I wasn't finding a lot of success with that. And luckily, I got a referral from a friend, and she's like, "Yeah, I own a property in town, and I need the gutters cleaned." And I was like, "Okay, cool, first gutter clean ever, $150." She goes, "Okay, done." So I remember I was commuting from where I'm at in Santa Rosa to San Francisco. We were doing this job on this nice house in the city, and it was like backbreaking work. I hated it. It was like 5 a.m. I'm on the road, sitting in traffic for an hour and a half to 2 hours,
Oh
bust
no.
ass, like don't even eat lunch, then come back. I don't get back until like 10 o'clock at night, do the same thing over for like a week or two. And I was like, all right, if I want to make this happen, like I got to do this on the weekend. Like I can't just rest because I'm tired. I just have to push through. I was working like 60 something hours that week, and I was just exhausted, and I was like, fuck it. I'll do the gutter clean tomorrow. She's like, okay, cool. It was a Friday.
So like
And
each job was like $150, or how many of them were there? It was just
it was just one, and then there was a neighbor that later on I had gotten, and I was like, okay, yeah, $150 also. But this one was the first like referral, the first real paid job, and dude, it took me way longer than it needed to. I just didn't have the system down. The gutters were still kind of wet. They were like really caked up with all these like granules and soot and everything. So it took forever, and I was like, okay, like 3 4 hours. And I made $150. I'm like doing the math in my head. I'm like, how many of these do I have to do in order to like comfortably leave my job? And then I started learning like the most valuable lesson, I think, was don't be the cheapest guy,
yeah.
right? Like everybody else would have maybe charged 200 to 300 to do that house, and they could probably have done two or three of those in a day. And I just was at this like mindset where like I need as many leads down the pipeline as possible so I can feel comfortable enough to then leave my job, right? They say like don't quit your job until you got the next one lined up. So I was too like hesitant to just say fuck it, I should just quit and dedicate all my time to this and go create those leads. They're not just going to fall on my lap when I have free time. So slowly but surely, that's like what I should have really done. But I was basically spending my weekends trying to go out and get more leads. And if I had to do it all over again, I would have just completely quit and just spent all every day just doing exactly what I was doing, like knocking on doors, putting up ads on Facebook, whatever it may be. Because in our business, dude, like I don't know what I'm going to have in a month and a half. You know what I mean? But I know in a month and a half I will have work, and
Yeah.
that's like you have to be comfortable with the unknown, because I know I'll just make it happen. If like right now in this podcast I could walk out and go get a job, and it really is that easy. Like it's simple. You just have to go out and do it. Like it's not rocket science, dude. It's like how bad do you want it? It really just comes down to that.
Yeah, literally, you can walk out of your door right now, go knock every single house on your block, probably get a job. Like it's just, yeah, how uncomfortable are you willing to be for a bit? And then, but something that too, like business does get easier. Like it's just, you just have to solve different problems, I feel like. And those
Yeah.
problems do get tend to get bigger. Like now I got to worry about keeping like 4 or 5 guys busy, but like it's still the same shit, which just getting more leads, and like it's not really not that hard. Now we our ads and our website is so many places. Like now I could just not do anything, like not do any marketing for maybe even this year, and I would still probably do decent. We
Yeah.
get so much like word of mouth, and like it should just build up. It's like a like that flywheel effect, I think they call it. So, but yeah, having that faith of like, oh yeah, I don't know in a month and a half if I'm gonna have a job, but I know I'll have something if I just keep at it. So I don't know.
Yeah, your business builds momentum, and that's key. That's why starting is the hardest because you have no momentum, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's like where you
Yeah,
really are just you're putting in sweat equity. If you don't have money to run ads, like you're out there hustling. And the key is to like that's how I think everybody should start really because you kind of like you get comfortable with the worst fears that you have, which is maybe like, I don't know, cold calling or door knocking or whatever. You get comfortable like speaking to customers, selling yourself, like understanding what your elevator pitch is, and then eventually it just becomes second nature. And then now you're like, okay, well, I put the time in, I'm getting leads. Now I can put the money in to get me those leads, right? If you don't got time, you better have money. So
yeah,
it's just one of those things. But yeah, you gotta leads are out there, man. You just got to go grab them.
yeah, dude. And that's funny you mentioned like San Francisco, like the traffic there too. Like, yeah, it can be the same here. I mean, obviously not as bad. I think San Francisco's like might be one of the worst in the world, but it's like yeah here if you don't leave at the right time. That's another reason I love this business too now is like we have certain clients where I'll service them. They're like 45 minutes away, but if you leave during the wrong time it could be 2 hours. But here it's
Yep.
just like fuck, I'll just leave exactly when I need to. Like I'll leave at like 11 a.m or 12, like right in the middle, and then there's no traffic, and then by the time I'm done, like traffic is either not hit or I can leave after that. So you can kind of stagger it, like versus another job you can't really like show up whenever you want.
Yeah, it's you're in a good area. Here I don't even like try to go down to the city cuz it's like I don't even advertise down there. I have like
Yeah,
a 30-40 mile radius like around me where I can get to, point A to point B pretty quickly. But
yeah,
that's a whole can of worms.
that's good. Yeah, yeah, and we have, and that's kind of what we spread like our different guys out. We each have like our little area. So like the job I did one the other day, it was like literally like 2 miles away. And so I just love that aspect too. It's like, oh yeah, 9 minutes, just go there, boom, make $400 in like an hour and a half, like boom, boom, we're done. So
Do you got guys that like do you go out and run the estimates or do you like to just eyeball it like you kind of know the drill by now?
yeah, I mean, so I kind of just subcontract them out. Like they make a percent. Like we just kind of
Right.
split it, and so they're kind of in charge of their own shit too. They'll do a couple jobs for themselves as well. Like they'll do like family members and such. But yeah, so they just kind of handle everything. It's kind of I was who was I telling this yesterday? Someone was asking about the subcontractor thing. Like if you for this business, I feel like it might not be the best because these jobs, some of them are smaller, 300 to 500. It's kind of hard to like split that out and everyone's happy. So that's kind of why we're getting like I got the GC license we kind of mentioned like
Right.
last night on last night's call, and maybe doing some bigger jobs like gutter replacement, roof replacement. We'll see how that goes. Like, I mean, I've seen a lot of guys talking about like roof replacement is like the thing. Like if you can get into that, like pretty much everyone in there is making good money. They're booked up like months out. Like roofing is like super in demand. So we'll see.
Yeah, that would be huge. I mean, I don't have the liberty of getting those type of licenses out here in California. They're
Yeah, California's crazy.
so strict. You can't do anything here really without somebody's permission. It's just crazy. But that goes to show like you could still make it work. Doesn't matter where you're at, just fucking deal with it.
Yeah, find like because there's always the law is always kind of like a few steps behind. Like we're kind of able to fill the gap of like roof cleaning and gutter cleaning. I mean, I'm sure in
Mhm.
a couple years you'll need a freaking license to do that as well. But I don't know. Right now, it's like you don't. So we can kind of find that when the next thing pops up. Like now, like solar panel cleaning. I just got a call this morning. Like solar panel cleaning is kind of popping off. I mean, you're just scrubbing that down with the water. You don't need a freaking license for that. But I mean, obviously you need like business license, all that stuff. But like as far as like being like a certified, like you don't got to go to trade school or nothing. So
Yep.
But yeah, so and then so you did some of those the 150 jobs for like
Yeah,
I
I
think we've
love.
all I think everyone's had that story of like, oh yeah, a job that I fucking underbid like a
Yeah,
motherfucker, like, and just made no money. But it happens. So did that. Talk to us about some of the like bring us to where you're at now. Like so you've I've seen you land some crazy jobs, like whole HOAs like 25,000, 40,000. Talk to us about some of those.
yeah, like huge, like 63 unit like complexes, and it's kind of weird how that took off. I'd always ran ads, and I always got just attention from homeowners or landlords or whatever. And this is another thing that like I always tell people that like ask me that are just starting. That they're always worried about the ads, and the ads are great, but you should also have some type of organic traffic. Like you should have an influence in your community. So you should network, So I joined a local BNI here, which was a really like small little group. There's not like it's not like one of those $1,000 a year type of groups where you have to report everything. It was really, really casual, really laid back. But I got to meet like a lot of cool local contractors, that have been in business for a while. And I'd gotten a couple referrals here and there from them, nothing too big. And then out of the blue, like after, 6 months of being in that group, one of the generals was like, "Hey, we're putting a bid in on this HOA complex. Like, do you want to come and take a look?" I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to say no." And yeah, show up. It's like all new construction. We're in fire zones, so that neighborhood where they had built like that had all burned down, so these are all brand new. They're all metal roofs now because
Mm.
supposedly that's more fire resistant, but because they're still worried about debris from trees and dust and whatever in the gutters, like they're still worried that that could also be a fire hazard by having that stuff dried out there. Um, so they're like, yeah, we want these things to basically be cleaned, every year or two. Um, will you let us know what it costs? And I'm like, never had to do like look at so many gutters in my life, and I just
Yeah.
gave them a price, and they said yes. And I'm like, okay, all right. Now I have to figure out how exactly I'm going to do it, but we have it scheduled for this year. I'll probably bring a couple guys with me, and ideally we would bang that job out in like, I don't know, 10 days or something. Um, but it's super doable. But that's just one of those things, like kind of what we were talking about earlier. You're putting in the time not knowing if you're going to get something, right? I was
Yeah.
dedicating an hour or so every week, going to this BNI, and I wasn't like getting an immediate result. Like I think as a business owner you have to put like a dollar amount on your time. Like what are you worth an hour? And that's where you can like really delegate tasks and understand where you should be and where you shouldn't be. So, but it was one of those things. So I just kept showing up, and eventually it worked out. And hopefully that's just like a recurring thing, and I can plan on it in the future. And every year it's just going to get easier. But after that, I just started getting contacted by like a lot of property managers and things like that. So the reputation gets out there. If you network with the right people, you kind of get in these inner circles with like insurance companies, realtors, property managers. Those are the people you want to those are the people you want to really like be friends with. Like show up to the office and say hi. Like don't just give them a call or an email or whatever. Like put your face out there, and it'll pay you back.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like the more people that know you, I mean that's really all marketing is, more people that know you. And I was doing some research for like, the land that we were just getting like like drilling companies to drill a well, and I look at some of the companies and like some of these guys like their website is literally like 12 years old. Like it says updated in 2013, and I'm like, but like apparently these are the biggest guys in the valley, and it's like they've been around so long. I'm sure they have more work than like I mean I talked to a lady in the county and too, and she's like, oh yeah, like everyone's backed up drilling wells for like the next year. And I talked to like one of the companies like, oh, that's not really that true, but I was still like, shit, like you're backed up for months. I was looking like how much to buy a freaking drill machine like to
Yeah,
drill wells, like if it's backed up a year, like. But but yeah, that's crazy. I remember I did like when my first year starting too, like a guy responded to my ad and he was like, oh yeah, I got a business, like we need some help, like come out. And so I helped them, and they've been in business for like 20 years. He's like, oh yeah, we don't run ads or anything like that anymore. Like he looked at me like, yeah, we don't have to do any of that. We have just like hundreds of customers that we just service every single year. So that is another cool part. Like you can pretty much just get the amount of clients you want and then just service them instead of having like one boss that like writes your paycheck. You have like 300 mini clients. So that's kind of cool too.
Yeah, that's where it's like your business has a reputation, like you're established, then you can start venturing off and like, offering new services or whatever. But I had the same thing. Like I got in close with one of the local roofing guys, and he works for a big company that's been around like 84 years, right? And he kept throwing me leads, man, and I'm like, dude, I'll pay you a cut of these leads because you're feeding me a lot of work. He's like, hey, don't worry about it. Like, as long as you're taking care of them, it makes us look good too because we're referring you. And I go, because I have same thing. Like I go on the website, it just looks old. There's like no social media presence or whatever. And because that was kind of like my strong suit, I just offered it to him. I was like, hey man, if you're ever interested, if you want to run ads or you want like content creation or whatever, man, hit me up. Like I could help you out. And his response was like, yeah, we've been around for 80 years. I don't think we really need to do that. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, I guess he's right. Like
I love it.
it's like, yeah, oh, he's not wrong.
Yeah, I mean, everyone always talks about that stuff like, oh, 90%, 96% of businesses fail in the first 5 years or something. So I guess if you just get past that 5 year mark, like, kind of chilling. Like, I mean, yeah, we're at a point now, like, it's like, shoot, the phone just rings. Like, we don't really, obviously, too, like, we want to add more people and such. But I mean, just I talked to a kid yesterday. They just put out. He said they put out 2,000 yard signs last year, and like it's just like that's like their number one source of leads. And I was like, that's super interesting because obviously we're big in like Facebook and such, and other people are into word of mouth. But like, it doesn't really matter what you do as long as you just get your name out there. Like that's just there's no way around it. Like you're either gonna be working for a boss, like not really doing much, or not feeling fulfilled, or you have to put yourself out there, and that's there's really no in between. So I think that's the
Yeah.
biggest problem people have.
Yeah, and you got to find out what works for you, back to like what we were saying earlier, like listen to the market, like for me maybe door knocking wasn't great or yard signs weren't great, but this one guy's killing it, it's like you can't listen to somebody else's business success or failures and then think that's going to apply to you. Like you just have to
Yeah,
do it.
totally. Like everyone's so different, and like your market is different too. Like think about like even like how many thousands of combinations of like businesses like in certain like even in Seattle like we have a different microclimate than like the other side of the state. Like there's just so much, and like even like yeah knocking doors, like I mean you and me, we're bigger dudes, like it doesn't really mess with us as well versus like I've knocking with like Kyle and stuff. He's like, oh yeah, girls just crush it door knocking. So like yeah, find whatever it is you like to do to get leads. Like that's definitely another thing that people need to keep in mind. Like you don't have to knock doors if you don't want to, but you got to find some other way to get your name out there. So whether that's running ads, building a badass website, like SEO and such too, and obviously stacking those leads, like that customer list, like that was something that I did the other day. Like we really only been using like the CRM for like a bit longer than you. Like we started like last year, and we have like 531 emails. Like we should have a couple thousand because
Right.
I've been doing this, but I just didn't keep track, kind of stupidly. But sent out a quick email. 15 minutes later, like one of our past customers, like, oh yeah, like you guys, we need this, and so went out $400. That was that super quick job, and so I was like, damn, I should have gotten on the CRM earlier as well too. So I know
Yeah.
you're one of the newest winners of. Pablo just won the Software Elite Award, which is if you've been using the
Yeah.
software like the
Yeah.
Exterior Pro longer than a few months. Yeah.
Spencer is sending me a purple Lamborghini fully customed out.
Yep.
Got my name on it, logo, everything. So I can't wait.
Yeah. Yeah. Or like one of those who are those guys in like Utah? They always give away like a badass like truck. It's like huge
Yeah,
with like I'm
yeah,
like, damn, that's a lot of money. Like how much money are these guys making from giveaways? Like that's crazy.
dude. Well, yeah, that's actually a genius marketing, tactic because they're buying it for X amount, and then you're buying their products, and then you're getting ticket entries per dollar that you spend. So even though you only spent $100, you have 100 tickets. You're thinking, okay, that's 100 chances I get to win this $100,000 rig or whatever. And so they they forced you to spend $100 like on an impulse because you think you might win something else, and they're probably making like 10 times that, with all the
Yeah.
people that,
Yeah, if everyone's buying I mean that's how any like lottery system works. It's like
yeah.
everyone just puts it in, and most 99.999% don't get shit, but that one person, the survivorship bias, like I don't know. Yeah, I've never really liked gambling though too. It's just like I don't know. I saw this one guy on, he like put like he put 100,000, his name was like Vegas Matt. He put like 100,000 on like
The old guy.
baccarat. Yeah, it's that old guy.
Yeah, yeah, I
I
love
was
that
like,
guy.
yeah, that's crazy, man. But yeah, so what else? I think that's pretty, we covered like pretty much everything. Like we got kind of your story coming up, um, getting to some big ass jobs. Is there anything like you'd say to anyone who's kind of like on the like, hey, should I start? Should I, hop in the group, or should I get the software? Like, what would you say to anyone who's kind of like on the fence right now?
Yeah, I would say definitely, like, not to just glaze Spencer more, but uh as soon as I joined the group, I was able to like ask those questions that I really couldn't get, and I'd get a direct answer, and I'd connect with people like Anthony and like Noah and Logan, like all these guys in the group that have a ton of experience. And I just felt like, okay, I kind of took the guesswork out of a lot of stuff. And then also the software too. It's like back what you were saying, if you're first starting and you don't have that reputation of like an 80-year-old company where people just call you because they know you, you should be utilizing technology into your business. Like you have to have an attractive landing page. You have to have a CRM that keeps track of all your customers so that you can do exactly what you just said, which was, hey, I just sent a mass email to my guys and I just secured a job just because I popped in and said hello, and so it's like, it's 2025, dude. So if you're not using AI, you're not like putting in automations in your business, you're not keeping track of all your invoices and everything in one place, you're just playing catch up, so if you want to get ahead of the game, obviously, you know, what's an investment in yourself? Like it's going to pay for itself. You know what I mean? So make sure that you're networking with the right guys. Use the software that you need to like bring your company into 2025. Don't be, old school with it. Um, and yeah, if you're on the fence, dude, just jump. Like, well, what's the worst that could happen? Like, really, like just a quick story. The first like big job that I got was an $800 job. And I was like, holy shit, I'm going to make $800 in a day. I was like crazy. And all I did was I called a realtor and I hit him with this line. I was like, hey, man, I'm going to be honest. This is a cold call. Do you want to hang up now or just give me 10 seconds? And he started cracking up. He's like, let's hear what you got. And I was like, okay, cool. So here's what I do. And here's my company name and blah, blah, blah. And I'd only been doing it for like a month. You know what I mean? So I was super inexperienced, but I was like, all right, I got to just like present myself as though I've been doing this forever. And I remember they were like, okay, go check out this house. We're about to put it on the market. It was a huge house, dude, huge, like 2-story, crazy house out in Sebastopol. And I looked at it and I'm like, okay, I really want this job. Realistically, I should have charged like $2,500 for that job. I charged him $800, and even then, I thought that was high because I'm like, I'm gonna make $800 in a day. That seems kind of unfair. But it took me 2 days to complete the job. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I was literally looking up on my phone while I was mixing up the soft wash tank, like what ratio of bleach to water for this. Like I
Yeah.
was trying to get the numbers right. I didn't have the seal fucking tightened on the hose, so I bleached all my clothes. I got it all over my face, but I was like, oh my God, I was praying going to that job. And I was praying when I came back the next day that I didn't ruin the roof. I was like so nervous. But after that, I was like, okay, I did it. Like, I can do this one, I can do them all. There's nothing that I can't do now. And I wouldn't have been able to do that and connect with those guys, get a good Google review, get those $800, all these things that just, started putting inertia behind my business if I didn't just say, fuck it, I'm just going to do it. You know what I mean? Like there's no looking back. We're just going to make it work. And it's all the mindset. Like you get that mindset dialed in, dude, your business is going to succeed.
Yeah, literally whatever you want to do too. Like that's another thing is, some guys are like, oh yeah, gutter cleaning, I don't want to do that. But then it's like, you don't got to do it forever. You got to put in the work, build your business, and then like, like we were talking about before the call, like buying land, building a house, like getting into real estate, starting to build equity. It's like it all starts, if you're willing to put in the work that other people are not willing to do, like you can do literally anything in life. That's quite literally what it's about. Like it's economics. Things are only valuable that people like the work is only valuable that people don't want to do. Like if a house is nice, it's because a lot of people want it. So you got to be willing to do what people aren't willing to do to get that the nice house or whatnot.
Yep. And doing that little bit of extra work too every now and then, just it pays off, man. That little, you know, you're doing a roof clean or whatever, and then they gotta trim a tree or some little thing, you always do
Yeah.
that, dude. It always pays you back.
100, yeah, trimming the tree, like fixing the. Oh yeah, by the way, like I fixed the gutter. Like they had this, it was falling off. Like they're like, oh, you just did that, or clean the skylight. Like that shit goes so far. And then yeah, it's people don't really. I mean, the second you kind of leave the employee mentality, like that's
Yeah.
like, and that's the thing too. Like, there's nothing wrong with any job, like being in a 9 to 5, like because we both have done it. Nothing wrong. Like all work is good work too. That's another thing that's really important to remember. Like if you're providing value and you're making money, like it's good work. Like it's so. But the 9 to 5 mentality is like you almost get punished the more efficient you are. Like you have to do more work because now like you're picking up the slack for all your coworkers and such. Like the
Right.
better you are, like the more work you have to do. And but that's the second you start your own business, like that becomes a superpower. So it's like
Exactly.
you kind of got to know yourself. Like, okay, I like doing the extra mile. I like providing a great result. Like, I don't want to just show up. Like, I remember showing up at other jobs and just you literally just kind of just get by. You're watching the clock, and it's like I don't know about you, but when you're on a roof job, you're not really watching the clock. You're like, oh, I want to get this done as fast as I can, do a good
Right.
job, get out of here, make money, obviously as fast as possible. But it's a good time though.
Yeah, if you're a good employee, chances are you'll be a good employer, but you kind of have to learn like how to be a follower before you're a leader. So that's yeah. If you guys are stuck in a 9 to 5 or whatever, and you're trying to like get by just doing the bare minimum, maybe the entrepreneurial life isn't cut out for you, but you kind of always have to give a shit about all the small things to the point where it almost becomes like an obsession, because when it is all on you, like all those little things matter, and you look at things from a different perspective, and you're like, okay, yeah, there's immense value in the little things that most people overlook.
Yeah, no, 100%. Sweet, dude. Well, I think that's pretty much everything. So, yeah,
Hell
appreciate
yeah.
having you on, dude. Like making money this year. Like, any plans for the later this year? I think you might be going to the huge or whatnot too.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to the huge convention. Yeah, I was just in Denver with Noah and Kyle from the group, and it was super cool learning about permanent lighting. Like we got to do
Yeah,
an install and just kind of nerd out on those things, which is that's a whole, you know, you got to study up on that a little bit. But yeah, super cool, and just yeah, looking forward to going out to these conventions, man. It's just a great way to network with people and just connect, and a couple $100 here and there, whatever. But you could, you make some friends and you make some great business connections. So definitely looking forward to that.
yeah, I'll probably be there too. So we'll make something happen, make some videos.
Yeah.
So for sure. So,
Hell yeah,
all right,
dude.
dude. Well, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, Spencer.